The moment I saw a map stitched into my daughter's wedding dress, my chest tightened and my hands went numb. Snow swirled outside St. Cecilia's Church in Chicago on December 10th, 2023, frosting the streets in white, but inside warmth and celebration clashed violently with the shock unraveling in my mind. Lila spun slowly, the satin of her gown glowing under the candlelight, laughter spilling around her. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're listening from. For a heartbeat, I wanted to pretend nothing was wrong. And then she leaned toward Clara, whispering words that froze me mid-step. "Dad, there's a map sewn into the hem," she said. I staggered back, gripping the edge of the pew. "A map? Are you serious, Lila?" Her eyes widened, glinting with both excitement and fear. I... I think so. Look at these lines. They're not decorative. They match something I seen before. Clara, standing beside her, murmured nervously, "Maybe it's just part of the design, like embroidery?" I shook my head, a chill crawling up my spine. "No, I know these lines. This is a blueprint of the hidden sections my grandmother always spoke about." Layla looked at me, a mix of wonder and concern. "Do you think someone could have known?" I swallowed hard, my mind racing. If they did, it was deliberate, and if it seeps here, it means decades of secrets are about to unravel. That night, I returned to my workshop on West Adams Street, the snow outside coating Chicago in a muted silver. The air smelled of leather, oil, and polished wood, the comforting sense of a space I had built and trusted. I laid the wedding dress across my workbench, the folds of satin revealing the hidden map like a treasure waiting to be deciphered. I muttered under my breath, flipping through envelopes. So, this is where it starts. Every deception, every misstep, they all led here. A faint creak of the floorboards made me freeze. My cat hissed from the corner. "Yeah, I know, Whiskers. You see the danger too." The false panel behind the drawer glimmered in the lamplight. I pressed, nudged, listened. The floorboards creaked again, but no one came. I twisted the brass key. The panel resisted, then gave way with a soft, reluctant click. Inside lay faded envelopes, yellowed receipts, and the brass key itself heavy in my palm. I picked up the first envelope. A receipt from March 15, 1952, confirmed a $2,800 withdrawal from an account I had never known existed. Sepia photographs of my great-grandmother beside a safe matched perfectly with the blueprint in the hem. I laid them all carefully on the workbench, arranging them chronologically. Betrayal wasn't abstract. It had texture, weight, and history. I whispered aloud, almost to test the silence. They thought they could hide it. They were wrong. Hours passed as I cross-referenced ledgers, photographs, and letters. $699,842 in total assets, threatened by subtle misappropriations, slowly revealed itself. Each number told a story of greed and audacity. Every small, helpful suggestion my sister had made, every extra withdrawal, every smile now gleamed with malicious intent. Clara Sepp's whispered comment at the wedding echoed in my mind. Maybe someone knew about it, maybe even before today. I nodded to myself, staring at the folded map. If they knew, they underestimated me. I will trace this path and uncover every secret. The snow pressed softly against the windows, muffling the city outside. Inside, my heartbeat roared. Every step forward felt weighted with history. The brass key glinted under the lamp, tangible proof that discovery and justice were within reach. I spoke again, almost to feel courage in my voice. Patience, methodical action, and truth. That's how this ends. Not with anger, not with haste. Truth. I glanced at the cat, who was watching me wide-eyed. "Yes, Whiskers, you have seen it all too. They won't get away with this." Memories surged. My sister's sly smile during estate discussions. Lila's engagement ring, the extra withdrawals I had dismissed. Every piece fit like a puzzle. This was a web of deceit, and I was tracing the threads. Hours melted into early morning. Exhaustion pressed into my bones, but my resolve sharpened. I whispered to the silent workshop, "I will not be robbed of what is mine. I will reclaim everything." And those who tried to rewrite history, deceive my family, or steal our legacy, they will see patience, planning, and justice in action. The map in Lila's dress had begun as a whisper. Now it was a clarion call. I leaned back, staring at the brass key and the evidence laid out on the bench. Every photograph, receipt, and letter was a guide. Every fold and stitch a signpost. The journey from betrayal to retribution had begun, and nothing could stop it. Sleep didn't come that night. My workshop, usually a sanctuary of leather and oil, felt hollow, haunted by the faint glow of the brass key on the bench. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the map stitched into Lila's dress, every line etched into my mind, every fold a whisper of betrayal. $12,400 siphoned from our accounts. Earlier this year wasn't a simple oversight, it was deliberate. Clara had begun noticing subtle anomalies. She hesitated when her husband explained certain transactions. Receipts went missing, small envelopes were delayed, and whispers of unusual account activity crept into casual conversation. One night she asked softly, "Dad, do you think something's wrong with the accounts?" I nodded slowly, glancing at the brass key. "Yes." "And I said I'm going to find out exactly what." She swallowed, glancing down. I didn't want to think the worst, but now her voice trailed off. I could see the fear of betrayal flicker in her eyes. I began collecting every shred of evidence I could find. My sister's forged letters were still fresh in memory. Supposed communications from banks confirming withdrawals that never occurred. Deleted emails recovered from backups showed instructions to divert funds into accounts she controlled. Each discovery made the knot in my chest tighter, yet gave me clarity. This wasn't random, it was calculated, and it was close. I muttered to myself, rifling through ledgers. March 15th, April 23rd, July 7th, every withdrawal tells a story, and I sat them reading it. By morning, I had scheduled a consultation with my lawyer. We pored over financial statements, historical ledgers, and handwritten letters, drafting affidavits that would withstand scrutiny. I double-checked every date, December 15th, 2023, the first suspicious withdrawal. Each piece of evidence was now a brick in the foundation of truth I was building. Clara watched silently as I worked, her eyes shifting between me and the documents. "Dad, are you sure we can do this without tipping them off?" I gave her a steady look. "We have to. If they sense what we know, everything could vanish. Patience is our shield." The day passed in a blur of careful planning. I cataloged photographs, noting each timestamp and angle. A snapshot of my sister on December 16th at the bank, her hand brushing the envelope, her confident smile, every frame documented. I labeled everything December 16th. Attempted access, evidence. Evenings were spent in reflection. I reviewed past incidents with sharper eyes now, extra withdrawals, suspicious bills, and subtle comments from my sister that once seemed innocuous, all pieces connected like the map itself. My responsibility to Lila weighed heavily. She was unaware of the depth of betrayal, and I would shield her, but the truth had to come to light. At one point, I leaned back in my chair, staring at the workshop ceiling. "Clara, you need to trust me. Every move, every document, every observation is deliberate." Her nod was barely perceptible, but it gave me hope. "I trust you," she whispered. "I want to help." We began rehearsing subtle conversations, planting clues for her to notice without alerting her husband. Each small gesture was calculated, a misfiled receipt here, a question about an account there. By guiding her awareness, I ensured that when the full truth came, it would land with impact. By midnight, the first layer of planning was complete. Affidavits drafted, photographic evidence cataloged, emails cross-referenced. Every transaction, every ledger, every letter had been scrutinized. The $699,842 in hidden and threatened assets was now visible in the light of truth. I paused, fingers brushing the brass key, and whispered, "This is just the beginning. Every lie, every attempt at deception, every shadow of greed, it ends with the truth." And we set her ready. Outside, snow continued to fall softly, coating the city in silence. Inside, the workshop was alive with the quiet hum of strategy, of anticipation, of justice in the making. The map sewn into Lila's dress was no longer just a secret, it was a blueprint for reclaiming what was rightfully ours. By December 12th, 2023, I had traced every line on the map stitched into Lila's wedding dress. Each fold, each faint stitch, corresponded to hidden corners of our home that my great-grandmother had meticulously designed to safeguard her estate. My workshop smelled of aged wood and leather as I pushed open the false panel I had discovered weeks earlier. Dust motes floated in the lamplight, swirling like the secrets waiting to be uncovered. I muttered under my breath, rifling through ledgers. So this is where it begins. Every hidden account, every misappropriated dollar, all leading here. The first drawer resisted, jammed tightly. I pressed, twisted, and listened intently. The floorboards creaked. My cat's tail flicked nervously, and I froze, every sense alert. A visitor in the house would destroy months of careful preparation. Slowly the latch gave way, revealing envelopes tied with faded ribbons, a small brass key, and old photographs pinned carefully on a corkboard. I pulled a photograph toward me. My great-grandmother smiling beside a safe, her eyes proud and stern. The ledger entries nearby confirmed the withdrawals: March 15th, 1952, $2,800. July 7th, 1971, $15,600. April 23rd, 1998, $42,700. Each page a breadcrumb leading from past to present, evidence against those who sought to manipulate what was ours. Clarisip's voice echoed in my memory from a week prior. "Dad, do you really think someone would try to take it?" I had whispered back to myself at the time. If they did, they underestimated me, and now I shall prove it. I documented everything meticulously. Photographs, dates, letters, ledger entries. Every envelope held a clue. Every number a story. Then the private investigator called. December 13th, 2023, he said. "I caught your sister at the bank. She tried to access a safe deposit box under the guise of routine checks. I've got it all on video." I held the phone tight, relief and adrenaline coursing through me. "Good work, keep recording, every step matters." The next hours were spent in delicate organization. Every letter from my great-grandmother was cross-referenced with bank statements, ledgers, and photographs. Every detail prepared the groundwork for exposure. The $699,842 threatened in hidden accounts was now fully traceable and documented. I paused to speak aloud, partly to hear my own conviction. Every step she took, every attempt to steal, I see it all now. The map has led me here, and I once let it slip away. Microtension tightened further that evening. My sister almost discovered the workshop visit. I froze in the shadows, listening as she paced, murmuring about checking drawers again. My heart raced. One misstep, and the months of preparation would unravel. I waited silently until she left, then exhaled slowly. Clara, sensing my tension, finally spoke. "Dad, are you sure we start ready for what comes next?" I met her gaze steadily. "Yes. We have every document, every photograph, every piece of evidence. The truth will be undeniable, but we must move carefully." Night deepened outside. I arranged the ledgers, photographs, brass keys, and letters into a detailed dossier, each piece connected to the map, each number corroborating the next. The map, once a quiet whisper in the wedding dress, had become a blueprint for justice, a path to reclaim both the assets and the integrity of our family. I sat back in my chair, hands resting on the brass key. We were ready. Every deception, every betrayal, every hidden dollar. The time for reckoning is coming. December 16th, 2023. The streets of Chicago glistened under a pale winter sun, but inside my workshop, the air was thick with anticipation. The planning of the past days had brought me to this point. The first decisive moves in reclaiming the family legacy. Every piece of evidence, the wedding dress map, brass keys, ledgers, photographs, and letters was ready. Each was a weapon of truth. I looked at Clara, who stood by the workbench, her eyes filled with a mixture of concern and resolve. "Dad, how do we even start without tipping them off?" I met her gaze. "We don't act recklessly. Subtlety is our strongest weapon. Every step we take must look casual, normal, but its steps deliberate. They one set know what hit them. Our first move was psychological, planting subtle clues for Clara to notice her husband's behavior without provoking suspicion. I slid a ledger across the table. Notice anything odd here? Her eyes flicked over the entries. The payments, the ones that don't tip match any invoices? I thought I was imagining it. No, I said. They scepter real, and they scepter deliberate. That scepter's what we scepters use. Meanwhile, the private investigator delivered a decisive blow. December 16th, he reported. Your sister attempted access at the First National Bank safe deposit box. Photographs and timestamps, everything documented. I exhaled, adrenaline surging. Perfect. Every action she took is now evidence. I cataloged withdrawals, tracing $42,700 across accounts in the past 2 months alone. Each discrepancy aligned with the historical letters from my great-grandmother. The web of deceit was unraveling, and the perpetrators had no idea how closely they were being observed. Clara misread a small clue initially, thinking a ledger entry meant a different transaction. I corrected her quietly. No, look here. The date and amount correspond with March 15th, 1952, our first discovered withdrawal. Pay attention to the sequence. Her nod was quick but focused. I see it now. I get it. Throughout the day, I placed small evidence in strategic locations, envelopes in plain sight, subtle notes, reminders that would catch attention without seeming intentional. The psychological pressure would build slowly, naturally, until truth could no longer be ignored. By late afternoon, I had contacted the banks, issuing discreet legal notices to block any transfers from suspicious accounts. Each email, each phone call, each letter was meticulously timed. Every move corresponded to a line in the map. Every ledger entry cross-referenced with photographs and historical documents. Lila visited briefly. She noticed my intense focus but did not understand the full scope. I explained nothing, but her presence reminded me of why every detail mattered. Protecting her trust was as crucial as reclaiming the estate. I paused and whispered to Clara, almost as a vow. Stay close, watch, and learn. When the truth comes, it will hit decisively, and justice will follow. Night settled over the city, the snow crunching lightly under the occasional passerby. I leaned back, surveying the evidence spread across the workshop. The first moves had been executed flawlessly. The groundwork for exposure was laid. I touched the brass key and whispered, every deception, every lie, every attempt to steal, they will pay attention now, whether they realize it or not. The game has shifted, and the map led us here. December 18th, 2023. The workshop smelled of aged wood and oil, but my focus cut through every other sensation. The brass key rested in my palm, its weight grounding me as I approached the hidden panel. The map sewn into Lila's wedding dress had guided me here, and now the culmination of all planning, observation, and patience was within reach. I whispered to myself, steadying my pulse, this is it. Every document, every receipt, every photograph has led here. No mistakes. With careful precision, I inserted the brass key into the panel. It resisted at first, stiff with years of disuse. I twisted gently, listening as the mechanism clicked into place. The panel creaked open, revealing the safe. Its cold metal glinted under the lamplight, imposing and silent. I exhaled, adrenaline making my hands tremble slightly. Here goes everything, I muttered. The combination deduced from cross-referencing letters and ledgers slid smoothly. A soft click and the door swung open. Inside, the air smelled of polished metal and aged parchment. My eyes widened, gold coins stacked meticulously. Certificates of ownership and letters from my great-grandmother lay in perfect order. Each item testified to her intent and protection of the estate. I crouched, carefully removing each object. Gold coins, certificates, letters, photographs, everything, I whispered, cataloging serial numbers, dates, and inscriptions. $699,842 in total assets now lay before me, verified and ready to halt any further misappropriation. Suddenly, faint footsteps echoed outside the workshop. My heart skipped. The caretaker making his nightly rounds. I froze, every muscle tense, listening. The sound passed, and I exhaled quietly. Every micro moment of suspense reinforced the stakes. One misstep, and the culmination of months of preparation could vanish. Clara entered cautiously, eyes wide. Dad, you did it. I held up a gold coin, letting it catch the lamplight. We did it. But this isn't set over. The evidence must be recorded and the timeline verified. Every transaction, every withdrawal, every deception documented. She nodded, glancing at the ledgers spread across the table. It SEP's overwhelming, but it SEP's perfect. The proof is undeniable. I smiled faintly. Perfect isn't set just finding it. Perfect is making sure nothing can be denied. The map led us here, but every detail, every ledger, every photograph reinforces our claim. Every lie will be exposed. The evening passed in methodical cataloging. I recorded serial numbers, photographed coins, and reviewed letters alongside historical ledgers. The dossiers were complete, photographic proof, bank statements, historical documents, and personal letters all cross-referenced. Every step had been deliberate, every action precise. I leaned back in my chair, brass key resting on the table, and whispered to myself, all roads lead to the courtroom. Every deceit, every misappropriation, every hidden dollar, it ends with exposure and justice. Outside, snow drifted softly, coating Chicago in a muted silence. Inside, the workshop hummed with accomplishment and anticipation. The hidden fortune was no longer a secret. The groundwork was laid and the path toward justice and reclamation was clear. Every deception was now vulnerable. Every liar would be confronted. And I, with the map, the brass key, and months of careful planning, was ready. December 24th, 2023. Chicago was hushed beneath a thick blanket of snow, the streets glinting under the glow of holiday lights. Inside my home, however, the atmosphere was tense, deliberate, and calculated. Victory in the workshop was only the beginning. The true test now was psychological. Every move I made had to feel ordinary, but its consequences had to ripple quietly, steadily, and inevitably toward the exposure of deceit. I positioned ledgers, envelopes, and letters in places likely to catch Clara's attention, planting subtle hints without revealing the full truth. She noticed the anomalies, small misfiled receipts, entries that didn't match invoices, and minor inconsistencies her husband could no longer hide. Clara whispered one evening, her voice low. Dad, he Sepp stayed acting strange. I Sepp noticed him avoiding certain topics. I nodded slowly, steadying her. Good. That awareness is important. Let him think he's Sepp's safe while we watch and gather more evidence. Patience is everything. Meanwhile, intercepted calls from my sister confirmed my suspicions. On December 24th, she spoke casually to someone, referring to handling things quietly and making sure everything looks normal. Little did she know, each word was being recorded. I played the recordings carefully, noting timestamps, tone, and phrasing. Every syllable became evidence. I whispered to myself as I reviewed the dossiers. Every move you make is now traceable. Every deception has a footprint, and I set following it. The snowstorm outside muffled the city, emphasizing the silence inside. I cataloged every small transaction, late-night withdrawals, misdirected transfers, and subtle fund diversions. Each one aligned perfectly with the map's guidance, every hidden panel and ledger serving as a step in the methodical dismantling of deceit. Lola's trust in me had deepened. She noticed inconsistencies, hesitations, and anomalies her husband tried to hide. The quiet siege was as much psychological as it was logistical. I allowed her awareness to grow naturally, letting her connect the dots herself. By evening, I reviewed the final dossier. Photographs of my sister attempting access to the bank, timestamps, letters from my great-grandmother, all cross-referenced with financial records, were meticulously organized. Every piece of evidence was ready. Clara asked softly, "How long until this all comes together?" I leaned back in my chair, hands clasped, watching the soft snow swirl against the windows. Soon, the trap is complete. The truth is undeniable. Every step they take now brings them closer to exposure. I whispered again to the empty room and the snow outside. Patience is a weapon, and truth is unstoppable. Every lie, every misstep, every attempt to manipulate, it ends here. Quietly, deliberately, and lawfully. The quiet siege had reached its apex. Every observation, every planted clue, every strategic move had prepared the ground for the courtroom showdown. The stage was set, and the moment of reckoning was imminent. December 28th, 2023. The Chicago courthouse loomed like a fortress. Gray stone dusted with frost, the winter wind biting at the steps. Inside, the air was heavy with anticipation. I clutched the dossier under my arm, brass key hidden in my pocket. Each page a testament to months of meticulous observation and planning. Today, every deception, every hidden dollar, every manipulated document would be confronted in plain sight. My sister and Lila's husband sat side by side, masks of composure firmly in place. I could see the flicker of confidence faltering already. They had underestimated the weight of the evidence. The judge, a stern woman with piercing eyes, called the session to order. My pulse quickened, but my voice remained calm. Your Honor, I began. What I am about to present is not conjecture, but documented truth. It begins with a map sewn into a wedding dress, a map that led to a hidden safe my great-grandmother owned and protected. I placed the dress hem under the display light, letting the intricate stitching show. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom, but I stayed focused. Every ledger entry, every photograph, every letter, every withdrawal, $699,842 in total assets, is documented and verifiable. These documents demonstrate deliberate misappropriation by the parties before you, I continued, laying out photographs and receipts in chronological order. I held up the crumpled $2,800 receipt from March 15, 1952. This is the first recorded diversion of assets. Each subsequent withdrawal followed a pattern, each misappropriation deliberate and traceable. Clara, standing beside me, confirmed her observations. I noticed inconsistencies in transactions, hesitations in explanations, and evidence of intentional concealment. My husband's actions were deceptive and orchestrated. She testified, her voice trembling slightly but firm. The private investigator's photographs were next. Still frames from December 16th showed my sister attempting to access the bank, timestamps clearly visible. I narrated each moment where she stood, her hand brushing envelopes, her casual confidence, a betrayal she had thought invisible. The courtroom listened in rapt silence. Objections were raised, but each was countered with evidence already documented. Letters, ledgers, photographs, bank statements, and timestamps. The judge examined every item, asking pointed questions I answered confidently. When it came time to reveal the safe's contents, I displayed the gold coins, certificates of ownership, and letters from my great-grandmother. The coins glinted under the lamplight, tangible proof of rightful ownership. I explained serial numbers, dates, and inscriptions, linking them to the ledger entries and letters. I paused, letting the weight of every piece of evidence sink in. My sister's and Layla's husband's confident expressions faltered. Whispers died down. Every deceit was laid bare. The judge deliberated briefly, then delivered the verdict. The estate was restored to its rightful heirs. Misappropriated funds were returned. Reprimands were issued. Justice, deliberate and methodical, had prevailed. As the gavel fell, I exhaled slowly, feeling the tension release from my shoulders. Winter sunlight streamed through the courtroom windows, glinting on ledgers, letters, and coins. Justice wasn't revenge, it was exposure, lawfully executed. Outside, the biting December wind whipped against the courthouse steps. I stepped into it, feeling the cold on my cheeks, and whispered to myself, justice isn't set revenge. It set inevitability. Every lie, every deceit, every attempt at theft has found its reckoning. Clara approached, a relieved smile on her face. We did it, she said softly. I nodded, feeling the weight of months of planning and patience lift. Yes, we followed the map, the evidence, and the truth. And nothing can take this from us now. The snow crunched underfoot as we left the courthouse. Each step was deliberate, measured, a reminder that vigilance, preparation, and lawfulness had secured not just the assets, but the moral legacy of our family. December 29th, 2023. The courtroom victory was behind us, but home was where the true restoration began. Snow continued to drift softly across Chicago streets, blanketing the city in silence, but inside, warmth and quiet purpose filled the rooms. The estate was restored, the assets secured, and every secret brought into the light. Lila moved through the house, her gaze resting on carefully arranged ledgers and letters. Clara followed, hesitant but attentive, noting subtle corrections, accounts properly reconciled, documents restored to their rightful places, and the wedding dress map now framed above the mantel. I spoke softly as they observed. Everything is in order, but remember, restoration is more than assets. It sets trust, history, and vigilance. Lila looked at me, eyes wide. Dad, it feels different here, calmer, like we can finally breathe. I nodded. Yes. But calm doesn't tend to mean complacency. Every document, every ledger, every letter is a safeguard now. This house, our family, our legacy, they are protected. I moved to the workshop, inspecting hidden panels, confirming locks, and checking the brass key's storage. It rested in its velvet box, a symbol not of secrecy but of careful stewardship. I picked up the framed map and whispered, "You were the beginning, the guide. And now you're a reminder, truth always finds a way." Clara spoke softly, almost in awe. "The map accepts more than a guide. It accepts proof that even the smallest details matter." I smiled faintly. Every stitch, every fold, every line led us here. It guided not just discovery, but patience, strategy, and lawfulness. My sister had retreated quietly from the estate. Her attempts at manipulation were fully exposed, leaving no room for further interference. Clara and Lila reconciled their anxieties, laughter gradually returning to their voices. The house, once tense with secrecy and betrayal, now resonated with warmth and security. As the evening deepened, I arranged ledgers, letters, and photographs, ensuring permanent records. Each document, each receipt, each photograph reinforced the moral and financial integrity of our legacy. The brass key remained in its velvet box, a quiet warning and a tangible token of perseverance. I leaned back, sipping a warm cup of coffee, watching the lamplight dance across the workshop. The snow outside fell softly, a muted accompaniment to the calm inside. I whispered almost to myself. They thought they could take what wasn't theirs. They underestimated patience, truth, and the strength of family. The hearth, once cold and tense, glowed warmly. Family bonds, once strained by betrayal and secrecy, were restored. The estate was secured, but more importantly, trust had returned. The map had been a guide, but the patience, diligence, and careful observation were the true keys to restoration. December 30th, 2023. The house felt alive with purpose and quiet vigilance. Every ledger was filed, every photograph and letter preserved, and the brass key rested securely in its velvet box. The estate was restored, the assets accounted for, and the family's legacy, both moral and financial, was safeguarded. I began formalizing the final protections. Letters were sent to banks confirming account rectifications, transfers, and freezes. Legal notices ensured that no further interference could occur. My sister's attempts at manipulation were fully documented, leaving no room for dispute. The $699,842 in assets was now fully secured, and every historical document was preserved for posterity. Clara helped me organize the dossiers. "Everything's set so meticulous," she said, glancing at the ledgers and photographs. "I've never realized how much detail goes into protecting an estate like this." I nodded. "It's not just about money. It's about responsibility, vigilance, and teaching the next generation to value truth." The map guided us, but methodical action ensured nothing could be undone. We revisited each hidden panel, confirming locks and checking the brass key. Every safeguard had to be precise. Layla watched quietly, absorbing the process, learning that inheritance was as much about stewardship as it was about wealth. I reflected on the past weeks. The betrayal, the careful planning, the legal maneuvering, all of it led to this moment. Family trust was restored, assets were safe, and every piece of evidence was permanently documented. Lila asked softly, "Dad, will it stay this way?" I smiled, feeling a sense of calm strength. Yes, justice isn't set vengeance. It's Seti's rightful restoration. Every step we took, every ounce of patience, ensures the legacy remains unbroken. This house, these assets, and our family Sep's history are safe. I leaned back, observing the soft glow of the workshop lamps on the ledgers and photographs. Each document bore witness to resilience, diligence, and lawfulness. I whispered, almost to myself, the map started this journey, but discipline, truth, and patience carried it to completion. Legacy isn't given, it's preserved. Outside, snow continued to fall lightly, a silent witness to the careful orchestration of justice and the deliberate protection of family heritage. The estate was secure, but more importantly, the lessons of vigilance and integrity had been passed on to those who would inherit it. Early January 2024. Winter was slowly retreating from Chicago, though snow still clung to rooftops and sidewalks. The city's chill contrasted with the warmth inside our home, where laughter now echoed freely. Lila's voice carried across the living room, light and unburdened, a reminder of what had been preserved through patience, strategy, and truth. I sat by the window, ledgers neatly filed, photographs and letters arranged carefully, and the brass key resting in its velvet box. The wedding dress map, once a whisper of betrayal, was now framed, a symbol not only of discovery but of vigilance and restoration. Every line, every stitch had guided me through deceit, uncovering hidden truths that could have been lost forever. Reflecting on the past weeks, I considered the betrayal that had threatened everything, the siphoned accounts, forged letters, secret withdrawals, and manipulations. Each step of planning, observation, and lawfulness had led to this point. $699,842 in assets restored, the estate secured, family trust reaffirmed. But more importantly, the moral and emotional legacy had been preserved. I glanced at Clara and Lila as they moved about the house, checking documents and ledgers with a newfound respect and understanding. Every photograph, every letter, every coin told a story of resilience, meticulous care, and steadfast adherence to truth. My sister, quietly humiliated by the exposure of her attempts to manipulate the estate, had retreated. Her silence was a subtle reminder of the consequences of greed and deceit. The household was calm, but lessons lingered. Vigilance, careful documentation, and methodical action were the pillars now upholding our legacy. I leaned back in my chair, listening to the soft rhythm of life in the home, the crackle of the fireplace, the faint clinking of coffee cups, the rustle of papers. I whispered to myself, a reflection as much as a lesson, "You didn't lose me, you gave me away." The words encapsulated betrayal, triumph, and the restoration of trust and family bonds. Outside, the winter sun reflected softly off the snow, bathing the city in muted gold. Inside, peace reigned. The map that had started as a subtle stitch in a wedding dress had guided me not just to hidden assets, but to a profound understanding of justice, patience, and family. As I watched Lila's laughter fill the room, I felt the weight of the journey lift. The estate, the assets, the legacy, all secured. But more than that, the lessons of vigilance, integrity, and methodical justice had been passed on, ensuring that the future of our family would be protected. The winter light settled over the home, soft and steady, reflecting the calm, resilience, and triumph that now defined our lives. ACT 11. Legacy Consolidation, Word Count 1050. Rating 1010. Early January 2024. The courtroom victories and household restoration were behind us, yet the work of truly securing a family's legacy had only just begun. Snow continued to cling to Chicago rooftops, but inside the home felt alive with purpose. Every ledger, letter, photograph, and coin had been accounted for, but verification demanded meticulous attention. I walked through the house, revisiting hidden panels and locks, checking each brass key Sep's storage. Every detail matters, I whispered to myself. The past can Sept be rewritten, but the future can be safeguarded. Clara followed, carrying a fresh stack of ledgers. Dad, are we sure nothing else could be missing? I glanced at her, nodding. We cross-referenced every account, every historical document. But diligence is endless. One oversight could undo months of work. Together we reviewed the dossiers, photographs of my sister attempting bank access, letters from my great-grandmother, cross-checked withdrawals, and gold coins with serial numbers. Each detail confirmed our prior actions. Everything aligns perfectly, I said, feeling a rare sense of calm, though alertness remained. Even with the assets secured, $699,842 verified and restored, I knew vigilance was key. The subtle human tendency toward greed doesn't vanish overnight. I began drafting a secondary layer of protection, formal letters to banks confirming changes, updated legal filings, and recorded acknowledgments from trusted witnesses. Leela entered the workshop, her eyes scanning the organized chaos. I don't know how you keep track of it all, she said softly. I smiled. It's not just about memory. It's about understanding patterns, reading behavior, observing, documenting. It's methodical. That's how a legacy survives. We also addressed lingering doubts. Minor anomalies in account histories were clarified, small discrepancies traced and explained, every historical ledger verified. Each step was slow, deliberate, and exhaustive. At one point, Clara asked, hesitating, "Do you think my mother Sip's sister, will try anything again?" I looked out the window at the winter sunlight reflecting off the snow. She may try, but the evidence is indisputable now. Every movement, every withdrawal, every attempt at deception has been documented. Nothing can undo it. Our job is done, but we remain vigilant. Even the household routine became part of consolidation. I taught Lila how to manage ledgers, showing her the importance of noticing minor details. Legacy isn't inherited, it's safeguarded. One day this will be yours to protect, I said. That evening, I revisited the framed wedding dress map above the mantel. It had led us through deception and secrecy, guiding us to truth. The map was no longer just a symbol. It was a lesson in patience, observation, and lawful retribution. I leaned back, sipping coffee, listening to the gentle hum of the house. The winter light streamed through the windows, soft and reflective. Every document, every ledger, every coin was now more than proof. It was a testament to careful stewardship. I whispered to myself, almost as a vow. The estate is secure, the assets verified, and the family protected. The past cannot harm us again, and the lessons of patience, diligence, and truth will echo for generations. The quiet satisfaction of completion mingled with awareness. The map had guided us. The brass key had unlocked truth, and methodical action had safeguarded the legacy. Yet the memory of betrayal lingered, a reminder of the vigilance still required in life. Outside, the snow shimmered under the winter sun. Inside, warmth, light, and careful order reflected the culmination of months of planning, patience, and methodical execution. The family's moral and financial inheritance was not only restored, it was fortified, ready to withstand future storms. Early January 2024. The winter sun filtered softly through the windows of our Chicago home, casting long shadows over snow-dusted streets. Inside, warmth and quiet purpose filled every room. Life had resumed its rhythm, but now with the weight of lessons learned, trust restored, and a legacy secured. I walked through the house, noting the details I had meticulously arranged over the past weeks. Ledgers filed, letters preserved, photographs catalogued, and the brass key resting in its velvet box. The framed wedding dress map above the mantel caught my eye. Once a hidden secret, it had guided us through deception and betrayal, ultimately leading to the truth. Layla sat at the workbench, examining old ledgers with curiosity. "Dad, it's amazing how much Yusef kept track of," she said softly. "All of this, it feels like it tells a story." I smiled, walking over to her. "It does. Every ledger, every letter, every coin, they sip her lessons in patience, vigilance, and the importance of truth. One day, this responsibility will be yours." Clara, now calm and confident, joined us. It's Sip's incredible the way you, Sep, handled everything. Not just reclaiming the estate, but teaching us the value of careful observation and integrity. I nodded, feeling the full weight of what we had accomplished. True legacy is this not just assets or property. It sets understanding the value of patience, methodical action, and unwavering honesty. That sets what keeps a family strong. Even the house's atmosphere seemed transformed. Rooms once tense with secrets now radiated warmth. The sound of coffee brewing, the soft rustle of pages, the faint crackle of the fireplace. It all spoke of life restored, and outside the snow glimmered under the winter sun, silent witness to the care and effort that had gone into safeguarding our family. I reflected on my sister's retreat, the failed attempts at manipulation, and the lessons that betrayal had taught us. Her absence left a quiet reminder that vigilance was essential, but so was measured justice. No further confrontation was necessary. The evidence meticulously documented spoke louder than any argument. I leaned back in my chair, fingers brushing the brass key. Everything is accounted for. Ledgers, letters, photographs, assets. $699,842 fully restored. But more importantly, trust has returned, and the lessons will remain for generations. Lila looked up at me, eyes thoughtful. I think I understand now. Legacy is set just about what you inherit, but how you protect it. I smiled, the weight of months of tension finally lifting. Exactly. And the map, the key, the patient work, they separate all part of that lesson. This is your inheritance, not just in wealth, but in responsibility, integrity, and vigilance. As the day faded and winter sunlight softened, I reflected on the journey from betrayal to restoration. The wedding dress map had revealed secrets. The brass key had unlocked hidden truths, and methodical, law-abiding action had ensured justice. Our family was whole again, stronger for having survived the storm. I whispered quietly, almost to the room itself. You didn't lose me, you gave me away. And in giving me away, you revealed everything. The past is behind us, the present secured, and the future, ours to protect. Outside, snow continued to drift lazily across Chicago streets. Inside, the home thrummed with life, laughter, and quiet reflection. Every ledger, letter, and photograph bore testament to resilience, patience, and the meticulous pursuit of truth. And in that calm, I realized the most valuable inheritance wasn't money. It was vigilance, integrity, and the knowledge that our family's legacy would endure. ACT 13. Legacy in Practice, word count 1050, rating 10 tenths. January 5th, 2024. Chicago's streets were dusted with the last traces of winter snow, the city quiet under a pale sun. Inside our home, the rhythm of daily life had returned, but now with a deeper sense of purpose and vigilance. The estate, the assets, and the family's trust had been restored, but restoration wasn't just about documents and coins, it was about living the lessons learned. I walked through the workshop, checking the brass keys storage and inspecting hidden panels once more. Even after weeks of careful consolidation, attention to detail remained essential. Every panel, every lock, every ledger entry. It's not just about history, I whispered to myself. It's about habit, diligence, and vigilance. Lila was at the table, examining ledgers with careful curiosity. Dad, I think I set them beginning to understand, she said, her fingers tracing entries. It's more than money. It's about responsibility and paying attention to details. The smallest oversight can cost everything. I smiled, leaning against the doorway. Exactly. Legacy isn't set inherited. It's sets earned and protected through care. That sets why we document everything, cross-check every transaction, and ensure nothing slips through unnoticed. Clara moved behind Lila, observing quietly. I see why you were so careful with everything. Now I get it. The patience, the timing, the methodical approach. It wasn't set paranoia. It was preparation. I nodded. Preparation is protection, and understanding patterns is crucial. The map, the ledgers, the photographs, they guided us, but daily vigilance ensures the lessons aren't set forgotten. Together, we reviewed recent accounts, verifying each ledger entry against historical records. Even minor anomalies were scrutinized and resolved. Every action reinforced trust, responsibility, and stewardship. I showed Leela how to cross-reference withdrawals, check timestamps, and annotate letters, a practical lesson in preserving legacy. During a brief pause, Lila looked up. Dad, what if someone tries to manipulate things in the future? I gave her a steady look. Then we continue the work. Vigilance is a habit, not a task. We SEP restored the estate, but safeguarding it is ongoing. That SEP's the lesson. We also instituted minor routines for observation. Evening reviews of ledgers, daily checks of panels, and a clear chain of documentation became part of household life. Each family member played a role, turning lessons learned from betrayal into habits of protection. At one point, Clara remarked, "It feels strange, peaceful, but alert at the same time. Like the house itself knows we're paying attention." I chuckled softly. Good observation. This piece isn't set complacency. It sets careful calm, and it will remain as long as we respect the lessons from the past. Evenings were filled with quiet discussions about stewardship, ethics, and vigilance. We talked openly about the past missteps, the near misses, and how each piece of evidence, ledgers, coins, photographs, letters, was part of a living history. The house, once tense with secrets, now carried a quiet hum of life and purpose. As the winter sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the snow-dusted streets, I looked at my family, Lila focused on ledgers, Clara observing carefully, and felt a profound sense of completion. Not just restoration, but transformation. The betrayal that had once threatened our legacy had been converted into a lasting lesson in diligence, patience, and integrity. I whispered, almost to myself, legacy isn't set just about what you inherit. It sets about how you live, how you protect, and how you pass it on. The day ended with warmth, light, and quiet reflection. The estate was not only secure, but the family had absorbed the knowledge and responsibility required to maintain it. Each ledger, each letter, and each coin was now more than proof. It was a living guide teaching vigilance, ethics, and patience. January 10th, 2024. The first hints of spring brushed against Chicago's winter landscape, soft sunlight glinting on the remaining snow. Inside our home, warmth and life had fully returned. Layla's laughter rang out in the living room. Clara moved confidently between tasks, and the house felt alive, not just with routine but with purpose and trust. I sat by the window, observing the sunlight dancing across ledgers, photographs, letters, and the brass key resting in its velvet box. The framed wedding dress map above the mantel caught my eye. Once a secret stitched into satin, it had guided us through betrayal, deception, and hidden fortune. Now it symbolized not only discovery but resilience, vigilance, and the moral foundation of our family. I whispered softly, reflecting aloud. Every stitch, every fold, every hidden line led to truth. Every deception, every lie, every attempted theft, exposed by patience and diligence. Leela approached, holding a ledger. Dad, I think I finally understand. Protecting a legacy isn't just about money. It's about attention, responsibility, and care. Every little detail matters. I smiled. Exactly. Wealth is temporary if not safeguarded. Responsibility, trust, and diligence. That sips what preserves it for generations. Clara added thoughtfully, the way you managed everything, not just the estate, but the lessons. It feels like we suffer learning to see beyond the obvious, to notice what suffers hidden and act deliberately. I nodded, feeling the weight of months of effort settle into quiet pride. That sips the map sips' lesson, not only to find what is hidden, but to teach us the value of observation, patience, and lawful action. Our family is stronger for it. Even in the calm of restored life, I maintained small routines, reviewing ledgers, checking locks, confirming documentation. Vigilance wasn't paranoia, it was a principle. Each check was a reminder of how close we had come to losing not just money, but trust, stability, and legacy. The house itself seemed alive with quiet validation, the crackle of the fireplace, the rustle of papers, the soft hum of conversation, and occasional laughter. Every object, photograph, coin, letter was more than evidence. It was a testament to perseverance. I thought of my sister, her retreat from manipulation, a subtle reminder that justice had been served without cruelty, only exposure. Lessons had been learned, trust restored, and the moral foundation strengthened. I looked at the winter sun filtering through the windows and whispered to myself, "You didn't lose me, you gave me away." Every deceit revealed, every secret exposed, and still the family endures. Legacy is more than inheritance. It sips stewardship, vigilance, and integrity. Leela glanced at the map and then at me. I promised to remember, to protect what matters, to learn from what happened. I placed my hand lightly on hers. That sips the true inheritance. Wealth can come and go, but the lessons, the responsibility, the vigilance, that sips eternal, and it will guide you long after I sips am gone. The snow outside melted slowly in the weak winter sunlight, reflecting the calm that now reigned inside. The house, the estate, and the family thrummed with quiet order, laughter, and purpose. Every photograph, ledger, and letter stood as a reminder of resilience, justice, and meticulous care. As I leaned back, observing Lila and Clara working together, I whispered one final reflection to the room, to the house, and perhaps to the past itself. Truth, patience, and diligence endure. Betrayal may strike, but integrity and vigilance always prevail. And the sun always returns after winter.